Ron, who has a past of incarceration and addiction, is now living in his own home with hope for the future. Ron has dealt with the loss of important family members, has spent 2 decades struggling with addiction, and spent time in federal prison. By all accounts, his life was headed in a really difficult direction. However, this is not where Ron's story ends.
I moved in December 24th, 2022, and for the first night I had no furniture, so I slept on the floor and an air mattress and my pillow and my blanket. It was the best night of my life. I was a meth addict for 20 years, and what fueled my addiction was grief and loss of family members. These were the people that were closest to me at that time, and it did something to me psychologically, where I thought if I got close to anyone else that I was going to lose them. So I pushed my wife, my kids, my parents, my best friends, everybody away. And that was the start of destruction in my life. I made some poor choices and ended up in federal prison. In 2018, I arrived in Billings, did a little more running around, running around with old friends, old acquaintances, and then got back into addiction. Well, my probation officer got a hold of me and said, "You're either going back to prison or you're going into sober living." And I didn't want to do the sober living. To me, the structure was massive, it was undoable, and I did not want to face those challenges. Well, my probation officer gave me an ultimatum to let me try 2 weeks at the sober living. And that's when things started to change for the better in my life. 2 weeks turned into 20 months, which was ultimately the best decision that I've ever made.
It can be really difficult for those with a record to find housing. This is where Koinonia Management Company and our property manager, Miriam, step in.
While at the sober living, I looked for housing and I couldn't get in just because I'm a violent offender. But the places that would offer me housing was not affordable. And so that was a task in itself.
The difference between CLDI and other property management companies is the relationship aspect. We will work with our tenant to make sure that they are well equipped to budget accordingly and to make sure that we can set up a payment plan with them. We could charge $1,500 for a 2-bedroom unit, but we choose not to, simply because we know that some people can't afford that, and that's what we're all about, is helping people and making sure that their space is clean and neat and that they actually can afford to live there. So Ron came highly recommended, and he had a lot of attributes that we look for in tenants. He had completed his program at the Sober Living Home, which was huge for us because that's one of the things that we look for is 6 months solid employment history, 6 months great rental history, and he had been at the Sober Living Home for 20 months, and that was a big thing.
So my mom had just passed recently, and I was behind on rent, and I had called Miriam, and I said, some of the funeral expenses I had to pay, and that $500 that I promised you, I spent it. And we came up with a payment plan, and I walked in, gave her the money, and I seen the gratitude she had. And so I turned around and I could just feel it, and I just said, "Miriam, thank you for believing in me." And then it just came out. I said, "Miriam, I love you." So today I have a full-time job I love. I'm mentoring others. I've graduated 2 of my daughters. I've also paid $18,000 in child support. I've come off of federal probation, state probation, and all these different adversities that I face and different challenges that I face. I've overcame. Well, with affordable housing CLDI offers, it's easy to upkeep sobriety and focus on the things that are important. As I sit here, I just want to thank Miriam for believing in me and loving me. Thank you.
Through CLDI's focus on development, Ron has more than just housing. He is a place to continue to heal and to flourish. Ron is doing incredible things, encouraging others in the recovery community, and we are so encouraged by his example. Ron is working a job that he loves, is paying his rent each month, and he is setting goals for his future.
At CLDI, we believe that everyone deserves a second chance and a dignified place to call home.